Good morning, dearest friends, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for our daily uh, study of the Talmud. We're studying the entire Talmud, one page, one line at a time. November 2nd, the 8th of Mar Cheshvan. And I would like to dedicate today's study to a relative. It's my wife's cousin who is donating a kidney to a person in need. So I want to dedicate today's learning for her refuah, for both her and the recipient, Devora Miral Baschas Yaliba, and the recipient, Shmuel Ben Harriet. They should both have an easy time, and the kidney should take, and the donor should have a recovery, and the recipient should find the refuah and healing that they need. And certainly a very, very admirable mitzvah, worthy of celebration and applause. And I also want to dedicate today's learning for the complete refuah for Malka Basimcha, who's beginning treatments today. She should also have a complete and speedy refuah. And I'd like to welcome everyone here that's joining us now or in the future, and a special welcome, a warm welcome to our dear Mark, who escaped the Holy Land just before Election Day. And but it's great to have you back in town. We feel the connectivity. We feel you're more in sync now with our East Coast community. And so Baruch haba, we welcome you back, and thank you for being here.
At least Friday won't be an issue.
Okay, well, wonderful. So we're studying currently Masechet Shabbat, the 20th chapter, Perek Toilin, Kuf Lamed Ches. That's 138a, and we've been talking about Ohel light, quasi, semi-structure, something that's possibly has the appearance of a structure. And so we were talking about draping a talis over posts or poles to create a structure-like arrangement, as Rashi describes, to provide not only some shelter from above, but also on the side. And we then discussed the difference of a throw or of a kind of material tent, like, if you will, that's already in position, and you just have to drag the ropes. That was the explanation of Rami Bar Yecheskel, and therefore there's a whole variety of items that we do nowadays that are permissible. Entered yesterday's big discussion, which was the discussion of the umbrella. The umbrella has facets that are akin to the material that's tied with a rope and ready to be launched into action, which would make us think that it would be permissible. Conversely, there is a OL-like arrangement, and perhaps when you push it open, there is a degree of temporary permanence. Don't ask me on that line. There's a sense of permanence. And so the conceptual discussion, the theoretic discussion about the umbrella is actually all over the place, with different rabbis having different takes, ranging from a biblical prohibition, which is not so common, to it really should be entirely permissible. No matter where you go, however, it is pretty clear that Lemaisa rabbis, halachists, will discourage the carrying of an umbrella. And that's based on some very early and great scholars of high prominence, starting with the Noda B'Yehuda, who prohibit doing it, and no one really seems to have taken back the turf to formally permit it. And if you look in the modern articles that discuss the umbrella, you'll also find an overview of the ranging opinions and takes. And some of the information that informs the umbrella discussion will be uncovered or continue to be discussed in today's Gemara.
Rabbi.
Yes, Rebero.
Is there any consideration of the idea that you're not creating anything, you're just uncovering something that exists?
Explain that question, if you don't mind, a little.
Like the umbrella, the fact that it's a cover is there already. It's not that
that's every tent in the entire world, right? Every tent in the universe is material that's pre-constructed, right? So I'm not sure why we would be inclined to be more lenient in this context, but maybe there's more.
Maybe along the lines of, to cover the window, if it's attached in some way, it's already there.
I hear what you're saying. You're asking Well, I want to explain your question, and I want to give a proposed
Yeah,
answer.
maybe I'll understand it.
Rivero is asking a very interesting question. We learned that if you have a shutter that's attached to the wall and you're just putting it into position, so it's a temporary extension of the OL, and we said that might be permissible, or that is permissible. Some say even if it's not attached. So Rivero is saying a temporary installation into a temporary OL or a temporary extension that's already in position should be like an umbrella, which is already in position. But I'll tell you the possible distinction. Over there, the structure is up and all you're doing is adding something to the structure. Here, the very structure itself is only being constructed when you open the umbrella, akin to propping the material over the posts. The moment it is constructed is the moment that you actually set it up. Until you set it up, it is not set up at all. And so that would be my superficial answer to why it is not a good analogy. But I would give a lot of points for that question because it is certainly a good question. But that would be my proposed distinction. You're going to join us? Fantastic. Chalbert, could you help me just set up the system to project the screen? Only if Shayna, it doesn't need you there. All right, so that was the general intro. I learned a lot yesterday from the discussion.
I have another question. There are tents of it.
I'm sorry?
There are tents, very large tents that are constructed already, but the sides, you can roll them up or roll them down. And since we learned yesterday that the sides are part of the tenting, can you roll down on Shabbos the sides of a tent?
So you're asking an interesting question.
If the top of the canopy is existing, everything is set up, but just the sides of the tent, can you roll them down?
So let me just see. So you're asking if you have a frame that's up, and the frame has
top is
4 curtains that need to be dragged down.
Well, the top is also erected,
Okay, so you're
But just-
basically they're all
but just the sides, you can roll them up or down. So at this point, it's up, and can you roll it down on Shabbos? For instance, we have people go, davening on Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, whatever.
So
And all of a sudden it starts raining, and can they bring down the sides?
So let
Or
me
is
ask
that
you a question.
considered- Yeah,
What would Rami Bar Yecheskel say? Should make T-shirts. What would Rami Bar Yecheskel say?
but my question is, because we saw yesterday, according to Rashi, the sides constitute part of the oil. So
Right.
my question is, if you bring them down, are you constructing on oil?
And conversely, absence of a side, if it was just a roofing, you're wondering if Rashi would say that's not an OL at all. You
That's
know what?
also true.
I think that's going to be a good chunk of what we're going to talk about today, is if there's a tefach on the roof, if there's any roofing. So we're going to jump into it.
Good question.
Dr. Hammer, go ahead, please.
You talked about the parasol yesterday, and that some people had somebody else carrying it for them.
Yes.
Is there a way of getting a heter for a guy to open up your umbrella in your home, and then for you to carry it to shul, and it's still open? Either leave it open, or the security guard or somebody there closes umbrellas. Aren't there other times when we have Goyim do things which we can't do, but the continuation play is kosher, and when it becomes treif again, we hand it back to the quarterback.
Dr. Hammer, you're asking a very good question. I actually, in my course of reading up a little further on the subject yesterday, and looking into some of the Sheilot Teshuvot, this question is directly addressed. Presumably, if we're going to say that the umbrella is only a dirabanan, it's a shavut. Well, shavut dishvut, to have a Gentile who is not biblically commanded to watch the mitzvot, but rabbinically precluded from doing a malacha. So maybe in this context, they should be allowed to do it. And Dr. Hammer, you're never going to guess the particular sheila or the teshuvah that I was reading gave an answer that's going to be a little bit triggering. You know what they answered? You're going to guess.
Kavana.
No, not kavana, but the adjacent Come on, someone want to guess what the problem with having a Gentile open your umbrella? So you haven't constructed an ohel, the Gentile has constructed. This rabbinically not okay.
Maris Ayin is a big one.
Ayin. And so, although you may have a Gentile do it, this could be a scenario, according to at least I forget. Unfortunately, I read a lot, so I don't remember who said this. This could be an issue of Maris Ayin. And so, Dr. Hammer, we're going to have a lot of trouble getting our Shabbos umbrella company set up based on my research. But there are certainly post-game that, at least in theory, say that an umbrella maybe shouldn't be as big of a problem as it is. But the reality is that it's become almost a societal norm among the Jewish people not to use umbrellas on Shabbos. And the rabbis are afraid to rock the boat and to create a breach that could have a downstream of detrimental effect to Shabbos observance. Now, this concern itself invites a lot of discussion. And it even invites a discussion to exactly what the koyach of the Chachamim are. How much can they restrict us? If the letter of the law allows, can the Chachamim steal from us, take away from us something that the letter of the law permits?
But just one quick response, just a quick response, that we're going to do the company, and Chabad is under the auspices of Chabad, and they're going to also advertise because we are not judgmental. Best regards to Mrs. Ayin and her son Morris. That's it. I still have a serious problem with judgment.
Dr. Hammer,
before, with being judgmental.
The umbrella company, you need to have it printed on the umbrellas. These umbrellas were not opened on Shabbos by a Jew. And then you can get arrested.
There you go. There you go.
What if we could put a satellite? What if we put like a mechanism, a timer mechanism in the umbrella that causes it to automatically open on Shabbos? Put a little motor that climbs up the umbrella.
A Shabbos umbrella. Like the Shabbos.
These are a Shabbos umbrella. Or what Dr. Hammer really proposed is a permanently open umbrella. The parasol that we looked at all had a closing.
Startup Nation invents something that stood up by itself and stays stood up.
Could have it voice activated.
All right, let me say this. We need to revisit soon when we finish the Gemara. At least, Belina, there, what we'll do is we'll read together at least one teshuvah just to see that, just so we see the language of the poskim in that side of the discussion. Just to
wait too long, we're going to go public, and everybody's going to lose out. I'm just telling you.
Okay, have fun.
Can't wait too long.
Rabbi, one thing to add to our list: what's the status of voice activating something? Is that automatically? Question.
That's an interesting question.
Put it on the list.
You got I unplug it. I mute it before Shabbos, so you don't.
I'll tell you the difference. Dr. Hammer's question, or the question that we're having about the umbrella, is something that Belina that I actually intend to revisit because there are actual present and available material that we can explore at the close of this Gemara. Voice activation, there are articles, but I'll need to do a little more research, and it's not discussed in the Gemara directly, but indirectly.
If you're talking about
indirectly, it is discussed in the discussion of indirect triggering of malacha. So,
but if, for instance, if you're talking about voice activated, it's the usage of a microphone on Shabbos is voice activated. Yep. So there's your answer. You can't do that.
Microphone Shabbos is only where we're running while turning on the light is.
All right, let's do the Gemara, and with Hashem's help, we'll have the opportunity to revisit a number of these discussions. But I just want to make clear that I'm enjoying the conversation, and we'll continue to have it. And I love the idea, and for sure, or I'll say like this. I am not saying that in actuality, there is necessarily room for any kind of umbrella. I'm not saying there is or isn't. What I am going to say is that this certainly would be incredible material at worst or best case scenario for a Purim spiel. It would be and maybe reality, but for sure a Purim spiel. I could see a Purim spiel revolving around a halachic debate between a vendor who's created a Shabbos umbrella, and so if it doesn't actually enter into the domain of real reality, it certainly has a platform and a forum where it could
Rabbi,
actually
just
be of
remember for
value.
the Purim spiel, you do that while water is pouring down on the guys.
So, anyways, I
Especially,
actually
especially if you
one
go to
last
the
thing.
to Rabbanim for endorsements.
One last thing before we open up the text of the Gemara is that there's been a bunch of scholarship done recently about the esrog industry. I don't know if you've seen, there were a number of podcasts. There's a new book that was printed, a collection of different academics on the history of the esrog, this sociological aspect of the esrog and the esrogers, which were the esrog peddlers. Esrog's the New World. Esrog's is an esrog from Greece culture, from Italy, Israel. Very, very interesting and very expansive discussions that have become more in the public domain, I think, than ever before. And interestingly enough, one of the earliest plays that they found that were a Purim spiel, a written Purim spiel, which was a production made by scholars that was meant to be humorous. And so one of the original or earliest extent transcriptions of the Purim spiel was a play which was two esrog merchants fighting over the supremacy of their schayra and in giving each other different rabbinic and Talmudic insults. And so there's a lot of room for anyways, let's share the screen. Let's do a little Gemara on the side. And again, thank you all for being here, and thank you for contributing to a very interesting and fascinating discussion on the subject of umbrellas. And we're not yet done. And you know what? If Hashem gives me koyach, maybe I'll even take the things that we've discussed and the things that we do discuss, and maybe I'll put it together in a source sheet on Safari, and I'll give a standalone shir to those who weren't privileged to join us. I'm not for sure, Bli Neder, but it's an idea that I had because I think it really is a very good example of where we could go to the Gemara, study some sources in the Gemara, see the commentaries, then see how it actually filters through Jewish history and the development of the European accessories and the like. So I think it could be a very interesting standalone presentation. So I want to thank you all for planting the seed, and we'll see what comes of that. Yes, Rabbi Allen, good to have you.
We could, when we duchen the next time, we could ask Hashem to put the shechina over our heads when it rains.
Yeah. Well, then we have to ask another question, anyways, good. Good.
You can't ask for anything
Amar,
on Shabbos.
I'm sorry?
I said you can't ask for anything on Shabbos.
I had an irreverent retort that I'm going to keep off of the recording over here. But Amar Rav Mishum Rabbi Chia. Another discussion very much related to everything we've been discussing until this point. Rav said in the name of Rabbi Chia, Vilon, a curtain, mutar lintaisai, mutar leparkai. You can open it up and put it back up. That's not a great translation. Rabbi Steinsaltz says you can spread it out and you can dismantle it. You can set it up and you can unset up a vilon, a curtain. So Dr. Stam, you referenced a sukkah that has walls that pull down. And I kind of imagine that maybe that would be classified as a vilon of sorts. But let's see why it may or may not be okay. Rashi, vilon, masach shekeneged hapetach. We're talking about a screen that is placed in front of a door. Mutar lin toto she'ein ohel, ela mi she'asoy ke'ein gag. A one dimension, maybe not one dimension, but a partition, a piece of material that is vertical. There's no roof, there's no angle, it's just top up to down. If there is no roofing, it would not be classified as an ohel. And so being that there is no roof-like structure on this curtain, it is permitted. Now, Dr. Stammer, we have to ask now is what if you have 4 different curtains coming from 4 different angles, and maybe there is a roof that comes out? Questions that need to be asked, but we're beginning to have some more language, Talmudic language to sink our teeth into. Also, what if the curtain is not in front of a doorway? What if it is somewhere else? What if it's dividing two rooms? Would the halacha be any different?
But we see here, but Tosfos, it said afterwards that the essence of an oil is if it has a roof.
Right.
So the roof is the essence. So the
Correct.
walls, I would consider them secondary.
Yeah, so that's what Rashi says. That's what Rashi explains, and that's pretty clear, or apparently what the matter at hand is. The Amar Shmuel, Mishum Rabbi Chia. Shmuel said in the name of Rabbi Chia. Rab and Shmuel were contemporaries, as we've seen many times, frequently debating, both quoting Rabbi Chia to teach. Now Shmuel, Kilas Chasanim, a bridegroom's canopy, as opposed to until now we've been talking about a regular kila, a canopy. Mutar lintoisa or mutar lifarka. It can be set up and deconstructed. Please note we've turned to 138b. Why would it be okay to open up this kind of canopy if we've said that canopies cannot be created? Well, we're going to see soon that there's something very special about a kilas chasanim. If you want to look into Rabbi Steinsaltz, who gives us a preview, it has no roof. It is entirely sloped. So it is kind of the way we might imagine a tent that comes up to a point. Similar to, I think, Tosfos's description of the talus that's spread over two posts. But let's not get confused.
Rabbi.
Suffice it to say, hold on one second. Suffice it to say, Shmuel is quoting Rabbi Chia as saying that a canopy that is called a kilas chasan, a non-roof. When we say roof here, we don't mean, in our minds, a sloping roof is also a roof. But here, a roof, I think, means a flat upper layer. Give me some scientific language. How do we call that?
Rabbi.
Yes, Rabbi.
I'm very surprised. To set up chuppah, weddings don't happen by accident. Why even get involved on doing
Hold on.
stuff
We're not talking about
when
a
it's
chuppah.
not necessary?
We're not talking about a wedding canopy. We're talking about a different accessory with a different purpose. It's called kilas chasanim. Maybe it was the decor that was given to a bridegroom's chamber, let's say. I don't know, but we're not talking. I'm not saying that with certainty. I'm just throwing that out as a possibility. But we are certainly not talking about what we imagine as the chuppah of a wedding. No, we're talking about a kind of canopy that is set up, which has no roof.
Why are you putting up and dismantling on Shabbos? What's the panic? I don't understand. Sorry.
Beryl, there's no panic. There's no emotion here. It is a question, a halachic question. Can it be set up or not? There's no panic. There's no urgency. There's no rush. There's no pressure. Now, in real life, there could be many reasons why there'd be rush and pressure. Maybe the vendor who sold the canopy wants to repossess it, or maybe there's another chassan the next night and he wants to get a head start.
Like
or
at
maybe,
at 770.
Or maybe the chassan wants to move somewhere and he's asking them to please move the canopy to a different bedroom. I don't know. There's a million possibilities of why one might want to move it. But our question here is a hypothetical. Is this considered an act of setting and unsetting an ohel? That's the whole question. But Rebero, maybe I missed the point. So I'm sorry.
No.
So again, no panic, no urgency, no emotions. Question: is this allowed to be done or not? Rabbi Chia says yes, you can, for a very distinct reason, because it is not a regular ohel. Rashi, kilas chasanim, loy damya lishar kilois. This is unlike any other canopy. Sheshar kilois, perusois al gabe kinuf, shehila dalid raglayim. Most kilot are spread over a four-posted structure. V'yesh la gag, and there is a roof. The heve oyel, which creates a overhang. V'shel chasanim, but when it is a chasin-like canopy, al gabe nakalitin, she'enon ela shnayim bi'emsa hamita. There are only two posts that are in the middle of the bed. V'kananasan aleim, and there is one post that runs across them, kind of like a rudimentary tent that you might imagine portrayed where there's two posts with a crossbeam and the material spread across. Well, that's what's happening here in a kilas chasanim. There is no roof. It comes to a point. There is no flat roof. Somewhere I saw a whole bunch of pictures. Let me see if I can find it for you. Show me. Shayna's starting now. 10:30. Okay.
Cowboys and Indians, the Indian tent.
Yeah. Exactly. If it's not a teepee, pardon me for you. I don't know if you're allowed to even say that word anymore. But if it's not a
Native American tent.
Well, I didn't say who made the teepee. I just called the structure a teepee, but I don't even know if that's okay anymore. Okay, this is not very helpful at this point. We'll keep this diagram on standby in case it becomes helpful in a moment. So suffice it to say, a usual bed has 4 posts and the material is draped over it, giving you a nice roof, almost the same dimensions as the bed itself. The kilas chasanim, for whatever reason, is 2 posts, and so it looks like a more conventional tent, and therefore is not considered building an ohel. Says Rabbi Chia. The Gemara is not done with this discussion, though. Of course, the Gemara is just beginning its discussion. Amar Rav Sheishas Breid Rav Idi. Rav Sheishas Breid Rav Idi gives a massive disclaimer, a massive qualifier. Lo yamaran. The only time the ruling of Rabbi Chia would apply is she'ein begaga tefach. If there is not a roof, there's not a flat upper surface of at least the width of a tefach. Aval yesh begaga tefach, in a circumstance where there is a tefach, well then, asura, it is prohibited. That would not be an acceptable to be constructed and dismantled on Shabbos. And even if there is no top to this canopy arrangement of a tefach, we would also need to have an extremely narrow canopy for it to work. Shalom Aleichem. I see we have a new person that joined us. If you don't mind just introducing yourself, maybe it's someone that we know, but it's an unrecognized device. So we'd love for you to introduce yourself. Shalom Aleichem.
Hi,
Hello?
it's me, Lauren.
Hi, Lauren.
Lauren Basker, how are you? Thank you for doing this.
Oh, Lauren, are you looking to join the Shayna's class or this Talmud class?
Shayna's.
Okay, give me 1 second. I want to make sure we don't get our lines crossed, okay? So just, folks, give me a second.
Sure.
Give me 1 second. Folks, give me 1 second. I'm just going to check in with the Rebbits and make sure that we have all of our technology set up right. Hang on.
I'm recalling the days when we used to have a woman in our Talmud class, Sharon Schmer, who used to come on a fairly regular basis way back when.
That's
She didn't like it.
Yes.
She quit the class because she didn't like the idea that we were calling a rag a shmata
Uh-huh.
because
Okay.
her father was in the fur business. So she got insulted.
considering where she is financially, she shouldn't be insulted. What's the line, Bernie, in English? It may be a schmata to you, but it's bread and
All right,
butter.
hold on,
to me.
gentlemen. Hold on. Give me a second. Lauren,
Yeah.
first of all, welcome.
Thank
So
you.
apparently today's class was not set up yet to be on Zoom. If you'll join at 10:30, it'll be on this link. But unfortunately, it's primarily an in-person. But do me a favor.
Oh,
Can you
okay.
give- Can
Come
you
up
give me your phone number? Because maybe we could connect you on the phone so that you're able to join like that. What's your phone number?
617
617
335
335
8314.
8314. And this is Lauren. What was your last name?
Basker, Brian's wife.
Oh, okay, sure. So I'm gonna have someone call you from the show phone so that you'll be looped in, okay?
Wonderful. Sorry to interrupt all the others.
No. I'm so glad that you joined. And
Okay.
give me a second and we'll get you on the online with the Rebbetzin.
Fun.
Okay. Thank you. Evyatar, you want to do me a favor? You could just run this over to the ladies' class. Lauren?
Hi, Lori.
This is Rabbi Kudan. I'm gonna place you at the women's class in 30 seconds. All right?
Thank you.
All right. If you could just tell the Rebbetzin that it's someone joining the class. All right, folks. Sorry about that. She would have been surprised. She thought that it's me Torah and tea, and we'd be talking about wedding canopies and
Let's go back into the
wonderful-
tent.
a wonderful subject, but it would just be a
Right.
surprising. All right. So now a bunch of qualifiers. So Rav Chia says, Kilas Chasanim, they can be built and dismantled on Shabbos. It would be like, and sometimes this happens where, Rabbi will get up and show and say, carrots are kosher. Someone asks, Rabbi, are carrots kosher? Yes, carrots are kosher. Well, hold on a second. Was the carrot cut with an unkosher knife? Was it cooked with chazarai? Was it, right? Is it from a Shemitah year in Israel where Trumot and Meiser are taken? So sometimes you could, carrots generally are kosher, but there are certainly ways to make a carrot not kosher.
Rabbi,
And so
the
Yes, Rabbi.
the first question about carrot should be, let me see the ring and I'll decide.
don't eat it. If that's the case, you should not be consuming that carrot.
Might consume you.
So my point is, sometimes a general statement is accurate, but we need to make sure to clarify that there are times that a kilas chasanim would not be allowed to be built and dismantled on Shabbos. Those scenarios would be, number one, if it has a roof, if it has a tefach worth of width. And so now is when I want to show you these images, compliments of all daf. So here, look. If it is less than a tefach, meaning there is no point on top that has a tefach. And number two, which is what we're reading now.
We don't see anything, Rabbi.
Oh, you don't see my screen? Hang on a second. Let me reshare. Sorry. I'm going to share my screen now. Here we go. Now do you see the image?
Yes.
Reb Beryl, by the way, it says in Ethics of Our Fathers, Lo habaishan lamed, the person that is bashful will never learn. And this is a wonderful example. I mean, thankfully here, that's not the case. We're all comfortable with each other. But imagine if someone would try to be differential to the rabbi giving the class, and he's showing images and pointing here and there. And if no one would speak up, it would be a disaster. So thank you. Here we go. Here are some images. I don't know how to center it. Let me see if I could figure out how to center this. Bear with me. I don't know. Well, let's see. All right. Can you see the image? It's not perfect, but here we go. Kilat chasanim, a bridal canopy, may be put up if, and here is our Gemara's exception or qualifier number one. It must come up to a point that is less than a tefach of width. If this would come up to a tefach, it would be a roofed tent, and it would not be able to be done on Shabbos. And you take a tape measure down the first 3 tefachim of this structure. It must not come to a width of a tefach within the first 3 tefachim. If it does, we'll say it's considered like there's a roof.
Rabbi, I hate to do this, but they look like umbrellas.
They do superficially look like umbrellas. Yes. I hope that's not triggering. All right, let's see. So let's see the Gemara. We're not done yet. And when do we say that you could set up and dismantle a kilas chasanim only if it's roofing, doesn't come to the tefach? If it has a tefach on the roof, surah v'chi ein begago tefach nami lo yamaran ella she'ein bepachas mishloisha samuch legag tefach. It must also not be a tefach of width within the first 3 tefachim. If there is a width of 3 tefachim, I'm sorry, of 1 tefach. In the first 3 tefachim,
Yeah.
I don't want to bother you. Can you do me one more favor? You want to just close that door so the ladies don't hear us? You might have to. You see, there's like a little. I should acknowledge we have with us a young yeshiva student who's sitting in and listening and joining us. And he's also being a real sport, helping me out over here. So Yasher Koyach and a shout out to Aviatar. Here we go. The Lo Yamaron, we also have not said that one can construct a kilas chasanim, this kind of special canopy. It also must not have a tefach beneath its slope. Let's read Rabbi Steinsaltz here. It is not in an incline the width of a tefach, but if there is in its incline the width of a tefach, it is prohibited. Let's go back to our picture and see if they can help us. No, hold on. Qualifier 1, gaga. Qualifier 2, pachus mishleisha samach legaga. Shipusa tefach. Let's read Rashi. She'ein kol tzad v'tzad nifshat lemata l'srachik tefach v'keneged emsi isoi dahainu she'ein berachvei lemata tfachayim. Okay, I'm going to be honest. I'm struggling with this third qualifier, but apparently its sloping must be so that it doesn't ever come to be wider than 2 tefachim. In a sense, this is not actually part of a bed accessory. That's what Rashi points out over here. The kilas chasanim eina asuya lisha tachta. It's not actually meant to be a canopy over a bed. Again, I'm still struggling to give you the exact definition. There's a mathematical formula for the amount of sloping per width, which I don't have the vocabulary for, but we'll just read it again in Rabbi Steinsaltz's language. We only said that it is permitted when there is not in its incline the width of a tefach. So when it inclines, let me see if I can get you a different translation. Maybe it'll give us. Anyone here want to explain what we're reading about here?
Yeah, but I don't understand the function of it. We thought it was a canopy to cover up privacy, whatever. And now you're saying it's such a narrow thing. What's it for?
Like a wall. There's one on each side.
No, it sounds like it's a decoration element. I'll be honest, I don't know.
Yeah.
I have yet to. We have to still explore what its actual use would be, but
I don't know.
hold on, let me see. The slope of the canopy must be so steep.
Yeah. 12 foot high.
That it does not extend 1 tefach out from its upper point. The total width of the whole thing would have to be less than 2 tefachim. I struggle to understand the function and the value of that, but yeah, I don't know what the value would be if you can't sleep under it.
It looks like all those limitations directed towards not allowing anything inside the structure. So all possible use is just a shade that the structure might provide, not to cover anything inside it, anything of substance.
In other words, I'll tell you what's happening over here. It sounds like Rav Chia said you could make a kilas chasanim. And Professor, it might be that I'm saying exactly what you just said, but we provided so many restrictions that it's technically not actually able to be implemented or deployed. Sounds like a kind of game that politicians might make, that we've arranged, or we've arranged for arrangement X, this could be done, but there's this criteria and this criteria, and by the time you're done with all the criteria, no one is eligible. $100,000 grants for every small business in America who, I don't know, operates out of a shoebox and
No, but there's no
lives on the 13th floor. And what else?
No, then they
No, you
tell
can't
you
do that.
just fill out this form, and you can't ever fill out the form correctly.
Yeah.
No, it's not very positive to spend time learning about something which nobody could explain what it was, why it's for a chassan kala, just a,
Office Max.
it's very
Office Max. There's a FedEx drop off inside.
Don't we have a problem with the size of the bridegroom, with the amount that it could open? How wide?
right.
Hold on. De facto, no one is being under this canopy. So
Yet.
by the way, I want to clarify. I'm not saying that it is not known what its function would be, and I'm not even saying there is no function. I'm just telling you I yet don't know what its function would be.
Well,
So there's a very important distinction between me saying I don't know and there is none. It's not exactly synonymous. I just want to be clear about that.
Well,
let me see if I can get you any more information here.
if you were a politician and you said that, the interview would say, well, when you find out what it's for, please come back and let us know.
Yeah, but the good news is
That
here it's
sounds
a
like the
group
press
study.
conference for the
This is
president.
This
We'll
is
get
a
back to
study
you.
group, and so
We'll get
I'll
back
get
to
back to you exactly.
I think it's because a decorator who works for the florist said the flowers would look good if they were in this vessel, and we'll call it a chassan's, whatever, canopy. That's all. Doesn't seem very functional.
Maybe it's suspended over them, but not actually. Well, here, let me read for you a note that I found here and here. According to the outcome of the Gemara, the canopy of a bridal bed may not be erected unless the bed that it covers is less than three tvachim wide. This is difficult to understand, for surely such a bed is far too narrow for any practical use. Rashi is actually therefore compelled, as we read, to say that it was not for any bed.
Right.
It was only for decorative purpose. And this is quoted in some of the poskim, right? So Rashi, we know what Rashi says, and I think it's Rashi that's bothering us. And I stand corrected because I said that we didn't say there is no use, but you're right. We read in Rashi that there isn't actually any bed involved in this kilas chasanim.
Okay.
However, Rashi in another Masechta proposes that we're discussing here a bed which has multiple canopies arranged. So it's certainly more of a decorative accessory than a functional overhang for privacy or any other purpose. So I'm not sure if this makes you feel any better, but at least it's not us grappling with it, but it's actually a good question. Now let's read this one more time. There can't be a point of less than a tefach. It can't be flat. And also, the first three tefachim can't be a width of a tefach. And as it slants further down, there cannot be a tefach on either side. So it cannot expand more than a tefach. And it also can't descend below the bed somehow. If it descends lower than the bed, a tefach, it is prohibited. So let's go back to our image. It also can't drip lower than what we're calling here the mita, but I guess it's not a mita, it's just a platform. And so, long story short, you're going to have a very hard time finding any use for this kilas chasanim, or certainly you're going to have a hard time having any use once the kilas chasanim meets all the criteria. So is Rav Sheshes basically saying no kilas chasanim installation on Shabbos? Is that what he's actually saying? So let's read Tosfos. Harbe yesh tema. This is a shocking, challenging Gemara. Eichi tochin zeh. What does this look like? How could this be? The imkein lama huroi. What can it really be useful for? Im lakol hashipoin at in tefach. If the whole width of the whole sloping of the thing, there's only a tefach. V'yesh lefarish kigoin shasadin shaparis al akila munach al gabe konim mirubim. V'loy pashnu hasadinim hetiv. Umunach v'noifel bein kana lekoina ke'ein shurais. V'yesh achshav bein kol kana shipua ve'ein boisi shipua. I think he's imagining a series of wave-like draperies, which I wish someone could give us a picture here. It'd be very helpful.
Maybe they're folding and unfolding, in a sense.
Yes. So, but give me the right language. It's like a series. Have you ever seen a roof or like a circus tent that has a bunch of slopes? Well, imagine something that's like that, where the roof has a series of slopes, each meeting this criteria on different posts.
Yeah, then they straighten it out.
It's definitely not the default imagery that one typically imagines of this type of canopy, but Tosfos is grasping at straws to try to find a scenario where there would be an actual function. V'doichek, this is all a challenging way to explain it. V'yesh mefarshim she'em yishipua tefach b'goy v'yud. V'chiyotza shipua tefach em yishama lamata goy v'yud. Maybe the initial 10 tefachim are narrow and then it slopes out. Etc. So suffice it to say,
Rabbi?
Tosfos speaks for all of us when he conveys the struggle of understanding this Gemara. Doctor?
Yeah, I was going back against Rashi said it's not for a bed. If you had multiple, tents, whatever we're calling these, next to each other, okay, then the function could be to make sure that somebody actually doesn't fall out of bed, the way you would when the kid goes from gets older and you put
right.
A guardrail next to the bed. So that's it may sound crazy, but it might be an issue that it would have a function at least. Then,
Rabbi,
yes.
When we're being so careful about the width, etc., depending on the material, it's possible that a wind or something would make something illegal that was legal to start with.
Again, the only issue with the Kilas Chasanim here, the only discussion here is legality of construction and dismantling on Shabbos. We're not talking about the essential value of what a Kilas Chasanim. So probably there is a common Kilas Chasanim, which is exactly what it sounds like, a kind of canopy over a bed that's meant to be very decorative and celebratory. And that we have no trouble with. The only trouble that we're having now is how could there ever be a scenario that would be allowed to be constructed on Shabbos, to the point where, admittedly, it sounds almost humorous. It sounds almost like we're saying it's permitted, but really it's not permitted once you get finished with all the fine print. And that makes us feel a little uncomfortable because that's hard to appreciate.
No, but Rabbi, the whole idea is not so simple. Let's say you have something that's too wide. Could you find a way to make it be less on Shabbos?
I'm not sure I understood that. I'm sorry.
You have a limit to the width, so many handbreadths
Right.
or tefach, right? So it's too wide. So on Shabbos you find a way to make it less in some manner. Maybe there's a string there that you could tighten. Would you be allowed to do it to make it conform?
I don't know. Honestly, I'm a little bit in the dark over here. I'm trying to figure it out.
So many variables.
I'm right now. My head is being bounced around like. Well, no, I'm between Rashi and Tosfos. Rashi says there's no function. Tosfos says let's try to find some kind of function, but it's also difficult. Listen. There are parts of the Gemara that are harder for us to understand. Maybe what Rav Sheshes is really saying is that actually Kilas Chasanim can't be used. Maybe that's really what he's saying. Maybe he's making his point in an interesting way, saying, Tachlis, in theory, I understand that it could be okay, but it would only be okay if it meets all the criteria to not be an oil. And when you take a Kilas Chasanim and you make it not an oil, well, then it has little function. Maybe that's what it's saying. Maybe he's saying the theory is good, but in practicality, maybe that's actually what he's saying. And if he is, he's making a strong point. which concludes this discussion. So again, I just want to clarify. What do we have here? We quoted Rabbi Chia saying that akilas chasanim fundamentally is different than other kinds of kilas in that it should be able to be done on Shabbos because it's not a oil. And Rav Shesha's comments, and either Rav Shesha is qualifying, which is the way it reads, or maybe he's actually arguing and saying, listen, in theory, I understand your point. A kilas chasanim is distinct from all other kilas, but there are a number of other criteria that would need to be met. And practically, once you meet all of these criteria, it's actually not a very accurate statement to say that you could set up and not set up a kilas chasanim. So let me ask you, how does this conversation match my initial analogy of the carrot? Is a carrot kosher? Yes, but well, obviously there are many more actual utilities for a kosher carrot. For example, if it's cooked in kosher ingredients, or it's eaten raw, or it's cut with a kosher knife. So it's not a perfect analogy, but I hope you get my point, Dr. Hammer.
Yes.
So,
excuse me. So you talked about the umbrella perm spiel. I'd like to suggest another perm spiel. It has to do with Chassan Kala's, both of the fathers before the wedding arguing who's going to pay for this thing, for the chasana, for the tent. And they argue back and forth, and then they start saying, what's it for? Why do we have to pay? So that might be another.
Whoever.
Bernie, to add to that.
No, Dr. Hammer, the party planner. The party planner says you have to get a kilas chasanim. Everybody does it.
Right, everybody does. Do we rent it? Do we buy it? How much does it cost?
But Bernie, at the end, they've argued so long, and it's Shabbos, and they don't know what to do.
Right, and the kids see them arguing, and they say, "Do we want to be? Why are we getting? Oh no!"
But to enjoy this spiel, one has to be familiar with this Gemara. Otherwise, it will be kind of pointless.
They would lock us all up.
And to note that these Purim spiels were actually in their origin a highly exclusive event where it was meant to be exclusionary to those that were not in the know. So it's a good thing we're studying the entire Talmud, because we'll get it. You know, I just Googled Kilas Chasanim and Google Images.
Right. Curious
to see what is portrayed. Oh, actually, I failed to do one thing. We have 1 minute.
Yep.
Let's do one thing over here. Halacha. No. Halacha. Let's see if there's any treatment to the kila.
Yeah.
Shulchan Aruch. Kilas chasanim she'in begagata. V'loy b'pachas migimel samach legaga rechatah. Hoyel she'im misukenes lekach. Motel and toisel motel parka v'shleitim mishal me'al mitatah. So he just gives all those criteria without specifying what its functionality might be. I don't know. Hasn't helped me yet. But I am curious to know what we're talking about. Eitz echad oimed l'rosh hamita gevay hamita. V'chein oimed eitz b'marglas hamita. Umutz nosan aleim uparis al hamoed. Giloin gadol shnei Russian yardim mikan mikan kimin oil al pi kol mita. Al pnei kol mita.
The overriding principle seems
maybe it's a very, very pointed, decorative installation that goes on top of the bed, and maybe at the very bottom it plateaus. But the plateauing, I don't know. I still don't know. We'll have to reach out to some scholars, Talmud scholars, to help us figure this out.
Rabbi, the overriding feature seems to be a string attached in some way. I'm just looking here at the number 10 folded cloth, etc. So if they could have a string attached to the bed somehow, maybe they get around it.
I don't know. There's more. There's certainly more to explore. Before we close out, again, I want to thank everyone for making this once again a fruitful and thoughtful exploration of a Gemara that challenges our imagination a bit. I just want to close out by showing us the next Gemara, which is going to be related to another umbrella question. Rav Shesha, son of Idi, said, "Hi siyona shari, a felt hat is permitted." We have elsewhere that says a felt hat is usher, and we're going to end up talking about waterproof headgear, and that might also meet into the merge into the rest of the conversation.
Said the
And
obvious
also-
question, Rabbi, is going to be if you can put that plastic cover over the hat on Shabbos.
Also, we'll close out with wishes for Refuah Shalema for Eli and Miriam. Miriam. I should heal fully and perfectly. And everyone here. Eli, you want to show us your eye? Who punched you?
It just, I don't know, got infected, got a little pimple, and just blew up a little bit. I'm taking
right.
antibiotics.
Oh, Refuah Shalema, you're back at work.
Yeah, Baruch Hashem.
I liked your other view a little better.
Turn the other cheek.
All right, dearest friends, have a wonderful day. Ayashar Koyach, and we'll continue this discussion tomorrow. We have a few months for our Purim spiel, so we can continue to explore good subjects.
Actually, Monk's view is very nice right now.
Wonderful. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Yashar Koyach. See you
Shikoyach.
tomorrow with Hashem's help in good health and good circumstances.
Oh my.
Chumash
Amen.
to follow.